Alrighty, so we're going to get started with creating a prompt, and I have some supplies laid out here. Now, the supplies I actually do end up using will be listed at the end of the video, okay, because sometimes, depending on my inspiration, I will pull out supplies, not use all of them, etc., etc. So, palette of colors. Okay, so I've got my 10 well palette here, and I've got my colors already laid out, and I'm using DecoArt Traditions, which is a professional acrylic paint, and the colors I will call out to you. Let's see if I can do this in the right order. Dioxazine Purple, Ultramarine Blue, Phthalo Green, that's on the blue side, Hansa Yellow Medium, Vermilion, Naphthol Red. Then I have Transparent Yellow Iron Oxide, Transparent Red Iron Oxide, and Quinacridone Gold. Then I have a little bit of Traditions Extender and Blending Medium right in here. Okay, and I didn't put any of that in these paints yet, just by themselves. I've got two writers, and I've got, this is a DecoArt Dazzling Metallics Elegant Finish Writer. Okay, this is in gold. And then I have Paper Effects, which is in Black Pearl. I have a large flat, a round, a bristle bright, a mop brush, and a foam brush. And these two here are Royal Aquilon and number 1 wash, and number 8 round, Royal Soft Grip, number 8 bristle bright, and a 1/2 inch Royal Soft Grip mop. Okay, and then the 1 inch foam brush, misting bottle, which I probably won't be using, masking tape, because I'm going to be masking out part of the stencil. I've got a very well-worn, well-loved stencil. This is an Americana Vintage Butterfly stencil, okay, and our 4x6 prompt card. Now, if you want to create this on something other than this, that's fine. It can be any size you want, any support you want, as long as it accepts acrylic paint. Okay, so you can choose just to watch the card being made and then create a piece of art based on this idea, or actually create the prompt card to give away to other people. Okay, so the idea for this, the theme for this is called What Color Do You Feel? And the idea is that you create a piece of art based on the color you feel at that moment. Okay, so I'm going to create the prompt card, okay, to inspire the idea of color. And anytime I think of color, I think of being free to choose whatever I want. And when I think of freedom, I think of a butterfly. Okay, so the butterfly stencil is a little large for the card, because what I also want to do is I want to put, instead of the stenciled parts of these pieces here, I want to use the writers to create dots. Okay, the other thing I was thinking about just using sticky pearls, and put them on, but I think the dots would actually be kind of nice. Now, one thing is, if you actually are creating the prompts, the actual prompt card to give to somebody, or create a book of prompts to use for yourself for inspiration when you can't think of what art to create, if you're going to bind them, so you need to leave some room over here. If you're going to put them into like an index thing, that's fine. One nice way to do these as well is you punch 2 holes at the top and bottom, put eyelets, and then string them all together. That's actually quite nice. Or even across might be a bit heavy, but having them all down like one under the other would be kind of nice. I'm leaving mine completely blank because I am actually going to be giving these out to people. Now, I'm going to mask out part of the stencil. And I'm just using painter's tape. You can use like a white tape, like a transparent tape, like a Scotch tape, but you may, it may tear. Like, just use something that's easily removable. I'm also creating all my art on a Ranger craft mat because it's no stick. Alrighty. So now I can kind of lay this out. So I'm going to keep mine relatively in the center, because I don't know if the person getting it will want to bind it here to go into a book, or they may want to bind it here and here to hang them up. I don't know. So I'm going to keep mine relatively centered. The actual prompt that I'm going to write, I'm actually going to basically paint the back just with using some type of Glamour Dust paint. Basic, just nothing fancy, and I'm actually going to handwrite the prompt in more detail. But I can also write in here in quite like a fancy writing, you know, what color do you feel? Or write it here or something. Okay? So that's what I'm looking at for this. Now, the idea of the colors is to simulate the color wheel. Okay? Or you can think of colors of a rainbow. So what I want to do is I'm going to be using my bristle brush to pounce on some colors, but I'm going to be pouncing the colors on in a particular order, because if you pounce, let's say, red and green together in the same brush, you're going to get mud. So I'm going to go with red to orange, then yellow to green, then blue to purple. Okay, because that way they'll all create clean colors, cleaning my brush in between each loading. But when they touch each other, they'll just create a new color. Okay, so red will never be next to green, and orange will never be next to purple. Okay, because they reduce the intensity of each other. Now, with this as well, I want to paint the background first. The problem is if I paint the whole background, okay, with the colors I'm going to be choosing, this is going to be all, the colors aren't going to be as intense on this, okay? So what I'm going to use is, I'm going to use some multi-surface sealer and lay that in on top of here. See, this was something I just brought out because it's the idea. I have not prepared these ahead of time. These are being done as the ideas start flowing to me. Okay? So any happy accidents that I make are also not going to be edited out. So I'm just using multi-purpose sealer. You can also use decoupage. You can actually use the matte finish, should be okay. You don't want to use the gloss because then this won't stick to that. So lay this out, and you want to make sure that that nothing moves. Now my stencil is pretty rough, so I may end up, my design may not look the same. So I'm just going to take my brush, pounce it into my palette, and then I'm just going to go here. What this is going to do is create kind of like a barrier. So when I put the colors on top, this won't mask out all of the background color that I'm putting in. It'll mask out most of it. If this was a solid image, you could actually wipe it out after, but because it's such intricate parts, I won't be able to wipe anything out. And you don't have to do this. This is just what I'm doing. Making sure I have good coverage. And one thing I forgot to mention, I also have, as part of the basic supplies, baby wipes and Clorox wipes on standby to clean up. This is now where the stylus comes in handy. What is that? I'm not sure what that is. Okay, I want to lift that up now. Oh, it's part of the stencil. I thought it was something else. Now, with this here, let's see if you can see this. See the butterfly? So when we actually put the background, now that I want glare, I can't get glare. Once this is dry, when we put our background color on there, this is going to repel some of that background color. So when we and realign our stencil to that, we'll be able to put the actual color in, and it'll be a little bit more clear. So with that, I'm going to put that aside, and now what I have to do is I have to go clean my stencil right away. Okay, you never leave sealer on the stencil. Paint doesn't matter, but sealer you don't. So I'm going to go clean this, and by the time I get back, this should be, there's some glare, this should all be dry. Alrighty, now I'm going to take my 1-inch wash brush and get some paper towel. Now anytime you're working with acrylic paints, please make sure you dampen your brushes first, except brushes you're going to use to do dry brushing and your mop brushes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into a little bit of extender first, and I want to apply this to the whole card. This is going to give me some time for blending. Water will evaporate way too fast. On top of that, the extender is made for the acrylic paint, so it's not going to weaken the strength of the pigment, the glue type of thing. Okay, and I'm going to rinse that. You want to get this coverage with the largest brush possible, because that way you don't have to. The longer it takes, the faster this will dry. Then your paper actually may curl. You can actually see the butterfly now. Okay, so now I'm going to go into, again, a little bit more extender, and I'm going to start off with transparent yellow iron oxide. And I want to make this extremely thin. Okay, and I'm going to put a wash of this over the whole, you can't see what I'm doing, over the whole card. This is going to be done in layers. And some of you may be saying, why didn't you just use the big brush for this? Because as I'm making this, you can see I'm getting all these nice little variations. That's what I want. And the paint that I have in my palette is actually more paint than I'm going to need. Okay, you don't need a lot to do this. These paints are so strong. They go a long way. Okay, rinse that brush. Now, one thing that I did not talk to you about is the heat gun. You can use a heat gun to speed up the drying time. And what we can do is you start it off, you turn it on, hold it about 12 inches away from your surface. Keep your hand, underneath, move it, and do this to judge the temperature. If your hand, if it feels too hot in your hand, it's too close to the paper. Okay, we're not embossing, and when you're using embossing with powder, you get really close to melt it. Okay, but this is acrylic paint; it'll actually bubble and peel. Okay, so hold it up high and just do this, and all you're doing is just away from your palette, and it doesn't take long. Okay, and if you don't have a heat gun, just let it dry naturally. So there we are. Look at that. See how it repelled? Okay, now sometimes, if I just reach over, if you take a baby wipe, oops, I should have this closer to me, but I can't, is you can actually just wipe up a little bit more. Now, if we use the watercolor medium, this would actually wipe up quite a bit. Okay, you see not much is coming off. Watercolor medium, it would have come up very, very easy. Okay, so now we're going to work on the next color, and we're going to go back to our round brush again. And now we're going to go with quinacridone gold. And I actually put these in reverse order. Quinacridone gold. And now what we're going to do is we're going to come in from the outside. We're going to go back through, but we're only going to stop probably around this area right here. So we're making it dark, and then we're going into light. And I can go right in here. A bit more extender, nice and washy. And I'm going to get my other brush. Oops, wrong brush. This brush, go into the extender and just dampen the whole card. Let me just pour a little bit more in there. This also helps keeps everything transparent. We don't want anything too opaque. Now that's just me. If you want to make your pieces opaque, that's fine. Nothing wrong with that. Because it's wet, it'll kind of seek out the moisture. Did I get some on the back? No. Actually, if you get some on the back, don't worry about it. When we come in with the transparent red iron oxide, that's going to be a little bit more tricky because we're also going to be working the edges of the paper. So the center of the butterfly is going to hold a glow. Okay, so see how that's like that? I'm going to make sure I kind of go over. Whoops, I went directly into the paint. Don't go directly into the paint. But you know what? That actually looks kind of pretty, just directly into the paint. What I did here is what we're going to do with the transparent red iron oxide. Rinse that. Now I'm going to take paper, a paper towel or baby wipe, and I'm just going to kind of pounce in the middle because I want to make sure that stays light. Then I'm going to get my heat gun and I'm going to dry it again. Now that's ready to go. Alright, so now I'm going to repeat this one more time. Now, if you were doing this with the Traditions with the watercolor medium, you'd have to be more careful with doing this. You wouldn't necessarily do this with extender. You do this with water, because the water works like watercolors. But if you do this, you may actually reactivate the paint that's on there. So just be careful when you do that. We will do some with the watercolor medium. Okay, just gonna rinse that brush. And where's my round brush? And now we're going to go into transparent red iron oxide. Now this one here, I am going to add some water to it. If I put too much extender, it's going to take forever to dry. I want this one really washy. And this one here, now we're not going to go all the way to the middle. We're going to come just to the outside edges of the butterfly. And keep your strokes really loose and let some parts stop. See how here you got a nice line here? That's because I didn't quite go all the way. Okay, just keep them loose like this. Have some blank spots. Oops, that's too much paint. That we don't want. Immediately get some water or some extender and just flow that out. Okay, I'm going to turn that around. And the card right now is kind of curled a bit, and that's because of the water being absorbed. It will go flat. If you use really thin paper though, like 90 pound, you may have more difficulty flattening out your paper. Just put it through a few telephone books or a flower press. I have a flower press from Lee Valley, and that's what I use. Okay, now what you want to do, first finish what I'm supposed to be doing. What I want to do now is I'm going to take a little bit more transparent red iron oxide, and you can let this dry first if you want, but I'm going to go over the edges to make sure all the edges of the paper are covered. This will create a nice dark edge and get rid of all that white paper. If you have like distress stamps or something, or distress pads, you can do that as well. I personally myself like doing it better with acrylic paint because it's permanent. Get a speck of extender, a bit more paint there. Now the foam brush would probably be the better brush to use. Too lazy to get it out. Too lazy, it's right here. I'm going to be lazy, I probably should make a good excuse, right? Okay, now I'm looking at this. I like this. I think I'm going to keep that in there. And I'm going to take whatever's left in my brush, and I can go in and just pick a few other little spots to kind of work around. I'm going to be putting the writers, using the writers in this section here, so I'm going to make this a little bit darker. And now this part here, you can do this as many times as you want to really darken out the corners. That's up to you. You want it dark and you want it faded to light, so always make sure that you come in with a damp brush and soften those edges. Now you can see that this idea can be done on a regular support, or even any size. Here we go. That looks really vintagey. Vintagey, my new word of the day. All right, I'm going to let that dry, and then we're going to come in and we're going to start putting in some color. Okay, so now we're going to start putting on our colors. Now I just stirred up the paint in the palette, but I didn't add anything to it because I want this to be kind of stipply. Now I just have to match up the butterfly to the stencil. Now there are some parts where the paint kind of went underneath. That's fine. It's no big deal. Okay, now what you want to do is you want to get a dry brush, but mine's a little bit damp, so that's okay. So I'm going to start off on the red sides first. So I'm going to pick up just a little bit of paint, and I'll start here. Okay, now I'm going to go into a little bit of orange. Okay, Now I'm going to go into a little bit of yellow. Okay, a little bit more yellow, because the more paint I add, it's going to kind of filter through. Now, I think I'm off a little bit. Let me just move up a bit. There we go. Okay, so now I can go into the green, but this is going to turn, this will be fine. It's if some of the green gets into here. So I'm just going to rinse my brush. Red into orange into yellow are fine, because red and yellow make orange. So when you get into the greens, you're going to get into trouble. I'm going to go back into yellow. Okay. I'm going to touch into the green. This I have to be so careful because phthalo green is so strong. Okay. Go into some blue. Bit more blue. I'm going to rinse that out. Because the green and blue make themselves very dark. I'm going to go just into blue now. Okay, whoopsie. Now I want to go into purple. I'm going to rinse that out because the blue and the purple together will look almost black. There we go. Rinse again. Now I'm going to lift that off. Look how pretty that is. That is so pretty. And I think I want to make this a little bit stronger. So I'll be able to line this back up. It's easier to line it back up once you've painted on it. Go back into the red. Okay, and I'm just going to kind of pounce off. I'm going to go into orange. I just want to make it a little bit stronger. Now I'm going to rinse my brush. And I'm going to yellow. Alrighty. This I'm going to actually do with the writer. There we go. Now, what's really cool, I'll just do it on a small piece here. If you take this and go, you know what, that's going to be a waste. Let me do it on another, actually I'll just do it on another card. The wet paint that's on there, lay it down, and get a brayer or a credit card, flat credit card. My stencil's bent a bit, so I'm just being a little bit more careful. And actually, oh, see the blue part's dried, and you get the reverse. It's actually kind of cool, eh? I'll use this for something else. The other thing you can do, I'm going to turn, well, this one I'll do here. With the paint side up, if you take your a baby wipe, as you start to clean your stencil, right on top of the paper, the paint is moved. You're wiping it up here, but you're pushing it inside onto the paper. This is really cool. Watch what happens. This is where you have to kind of be careful that you don't tear your stencil with the really, really small pieces. Now that I went from red and I went over to the green, now all the color in here is turned to brown. See? No wasting paint. And that's your lesson for today. Alrighty, so now let's get this. Now, if you don't like the vibrant colors, you don't have to use those vibrant colors. I'm a big user of black and white, but I was in the mood for something bright for this one. Okay, now, where's my writer? I'm just going to do this off to get it started. Now I'm going to put the little head in there. Start here. Oops, there's an air bubble in there. His body should be big. Then it tapers off. Turn it around and taper off. Like so. His body got smushed. I'm just going to kind of dot in here just to kind of make it look wrinkled, like his body's like this. Okay, and I'm going to wipe that on a little bit of a paper towel. Hit that so the paint goes back down. It does have a little bit of a shine to it. And now I'm going to go to the metallic writer. This is gold. And I'm going to put today, there we go. And wherever I want dots, I'm going to put dots just outside the wings. And here as well I can put some like so. You can do these any way you want. I like texture in my pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. And then from here, you can do really anything you want. You can continue on and just completely outline the butterfly if you want. Okay, that's completely up to you. Okay, I like it like that. Get the cap back on. Now I'm going to let this dry for a bit, and then what I will do is I will get, there's a clear. Just get that started, and the clear, I'll just go over the antennas. The paint will still show through, but this is going to add some dimension to it. I love using the Paper Effects stuff. Paper Effects stuff. Round, come on. Doop. And when that's clear, that's going to be really, really beautiful. And then I can also just put clear texture anywhere I want. Let's see, this one, we'll put this one here. This stencil part's a star. I don't really like the stars for this particular piece, but that's fine. Let me put another clear one here and a clear one here. There we are. Okay, this now is going to take, probably a good hour to 2 hours to dry, especially this part because it's very, very thick. Once you've actually started doing this, don't touch it. Leave it the way it is, okay? And if you can leave it overnight, that's even better, okay? So what I'll do is when this is fully dry, then I will paint the back, okay? And all I'm going to do is use a foam brush with Glamour Dust Copper and just put a coating on top. And for that, all I'm going to do is shake that bottle really, really well. And I'm just going to squirt some of that out with the foam brush. This is just the back of the card. I don't want to make the color too dark. And you don't have to make it sparkly. You can make it just plain acrylic. But I prefer to finish the backs of my card. I just kind of like them having a little bit of bling to it. You can also stencil over this if you want. But I keep mine so thin that it really just looks like the paper and with a very light dusting of the dust, the glamour dust. The glamour dust is extremely fine. It's not like glitter paint, which I also have, but it's too strong. This glamour dust is just a fine, fine, fine misting of beautiful particles. Just like that. And then when that's dry, I'll use my pen and I'll just kind of fully write out the details of the prompt. Okay? Usually on the front, I leave it blank. Or actually maybe write some words in here. But because the way this is, and I'm not sure if the person's going to do the binding here, here, or here, that kind of leaves me to only work with this area. And what I'll do is I'll do it on a piece of tracing paper first. I kind of lay it on top to see if I like it. And if I like it there, then I'll actually write it. And if I don't like it, I'll just write it on the back. So I'm going to clean up now and we'll be back when this is totally dry. Okay, so we're all dry, so it looks so beautiful. I'm not going to do any writing on here. I'm going to leave that for the back because it's going to take away from the card. I love the contrast of the matte finish of the paint with the kind of the shiny effects of the dazzling metallics and the paper effects. I really like what I've got here. It's up to you at this point if you were to do it this way, whether you want to put a varnish on it. That's completely up to you. If it's going to be a card that you're going to hand out to somebody else, you may want to put a varnish on it just to protect it a little bit more. But for me, this prompt is done. So I hope you enjoyed this and have fun creating this prompt. As well, I'd even be more interested in seeing the journal page or the piece of artwork that you create based on this inspiration. So until next time, stay inspired.